Can you please explain why eating more and lifting heavy weights helps you lose weight and keep it off?
Oh my goodness, how much time do we have left?
We got a couple hours. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is obviously nuanced and it's individual. And there's a lot to be said for where somebody's coming in and what they're currently doing, their preferences, and like that's one of the tricky parts is like there are a lot of ways to approach things. That being said, the unsung hero in this entire conversation, if we want to like change the way our body looks, we want to build muscle, we want body, even if we want just people say body recomposition. And this is how it's impacting everything outside of even your performance, like your health and well-being, mental and physical health and well-being are being affected by or could be affected by these things, but you're not eating enough to match your energy output. So that wasn't a thing. We didn't even have the term red S until 2014. So that's less than a decade ago at this point.
What term?
So it's relative energy deficiency in sport, which is where we're chronically under eating compared to our activity level. So that's things are evolving at the same time, but I didn't have a term for that to at that point describe what I was experiencing. All I know is I burned out in 2010, 2011, and I was losing my muscle mass. I was exhausted all the time. I had a lot of challenges with mood, like crazy mood swings. I mean, this is just like really uncharacteristic for me, and chronic injuries, things like that popping up. And I just was like, I'm sick of racing. Like I'm sick of competing. I just don't want to do this anymore. Yeah, I think the key piece of this is that, even when we've looked at studies in like controlled studies in a lab situation, right? If we get into there are different types of calorie deficits here. We can have like a mild calorie deficit, a more moderate one, and we can have like a pretty extreme calorie deficit, right? When we enter those pretty significant calorie deficits, we have to pull energy from somewhere. And inevitably part of that ends up becoming our muscle mass. Where are we getting the amino acids from? Our muscle tissue becomes part of that like, here are some amino acids. You have to actually take them from your muscle tissue. So we don't want to then further reduce that metabolic, demand that muscle does put on the body. Like it's really important, I think, for people to understand that that's when we lose too much muscle mass, we get a clinical condition called sarcopenia, which is like clinical levels of muscle loss that affect our metabolic health, our health and longevity, our well-being, our quality of life. This is it's like a serious thing. So I feel like, if you have the ability to, movement is so important, and it can become that anchor point, especially if you start to come up with goals or things you want to reach toward. Then you're like, oh, well, this is like a priority in my life because I know when I take care of my body, I'm able to go get my workout done. Like I feel so much better. I'm able
Yeah.
to like handle things better. I'm more calm. I'm more present. Like I practice doing hard things. I know I can overcome this adversity. And then we start to see those other habits, those other things fall into place. You want to run 100 miles? Guess what? You're not going to do it on 5 hours of sleep a night. Like, I don't know. You could try, but you'll probably blow up and your knees will explode. Like something's going to happen. You want to be able to have the energy to go in and like lift heavy stuff because you feel like a beast afterwards, and you're like, I just did that deadlift, like what, like come at me, you
Yeah.
have that, you get that feeling, but you're like, if I want to be able to do those things, I have to eat in a way that gives me the energy to do those things. BJJ is very similar. Somebody's on top of you and you're like, I got to be in a place where I can just focus on,
Yep.
I've got to calm down. I've got to be able to think. I've got to be able to plan my next move. And so it does become very much the intersection of body and mind. And yeah, moving your body and being able to experience all of those mental benefits that come from movement and exercise is so underrated.
Hmm.
So underrated in our culture. Is that movement is so great for your health in so many ways. It's not just about like how you end up looking can be a nice side benefit, but like a lot of the true unsung benefits to that go very deep.
Yeah. Yeah. With the way you kicked it off saying that like the gym's like a controlled dose of stress, that is like such a good way to put at least what I'm getting after in the gym or on any of my runs. Dave Goggins always says, he says a shitstorm's coming, you better be prepared. And I think what he's saying is it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, whatever.
I feel so tired all the time, and we look at what they're eating. I'm like, you're eating less than a toddler would eat. Like, it doesn't make it make sense. Make it make sense, please. And so, like, I'm here to help you do that. Let's get you moving in the right direction. But I saw a post today, and I think it was from GMB Fitness, and it was something like, well, when you feel stiff, the last thing you want to do is not move. You think you don't want to move when you feel stiff, and you're like, oh, you think I'm just going to stay in place. But that's the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do is move. So I feel like, if you have the ability to, movement is so important, and it can become that anchor point, especially if you start to come up with goals or things you want to reach toward. Then you're like, oh, well, this is like a priority in my life, because I know when I take care of my body, I'm able to go get my workout done. Like, I feel so much better. I'm able
Yeah.
to like handle things better. I'm more calm and more present. Like, I practice doing hard things. I know I can overcome this adversity.
With the way you kicked it off, saying that like the gym's like a controlled dose of stress, that is like such a good way to put at least what I'm getting after in the gym or on any of my runs. Dave Goggins always says, he says a shitstorm's coming, you better be prepared. And I think what he's saying is it doesn't matter who you are, how much money you have, whatever. Someone in your family at some point is going to get sick. Something's going to happen to your business, your whatever the heck, your house is going to flood. Something happens to everyone once in a while. And, really, you just need to be able to be prepared for it. I remember something that it was like the most proud I was in recent times. It was 2 years ago. I lost my biggest client, which at the time it was a huge client, and they were like 65% of my revenue, like a huge client. And I've learned not to expose myself like that anymore. But they were about 90% of my time, right? And 98% of my problems. So you can already see leaving them would be a great win for me, assuming that I have my baseline needs met financially.